toss that rusty old grill into the lake and set the Barcalounger on fire. You have now entered the Dadward Spiral. Hey, everyone. It's me, Aaron Pruner, the guy who started this whole fiasco of a show. Welcome. Now, look, before I even say where you could find me, I just want to preempt this by saying we are recording this the night after election night, and it's anarchy in my head. Not really anarchy on the streets, but we're all a little loosey-goosey, so please bear with us. With that said, I'm Aaron Pruner.
And I'm Eddie Doty.
And thank you for sticking with us. You can find me at Aaron Flux on Twitter. We're Dadward Spiral on Facebook and Instagram, as well as on all the podcast networks, and at Dragon Wagon Radio, who is our host, our podcast platform, our
home. Our home. It's where we live. It's a physical place. Dragon Wagon Radio. We have the second floor to ourselves.
I'm in the bed at all times.
Yeah, I'm in the Chase Lounge.
And before we even really get into this, I want to say that if you hear a clinking, that is the ice in my cocktail because I'm fucking drinking. It's whiskey.
After election, folks.
So welcome. And, I was going to catch up a bit with Eddie, but we were already catching up before hitting record. And before I introduce our guest for this episode, Eddie,
I can't wait to be introduced. Go ahead, do your thing.
Spoiler alert.
Jesus.
I cannot wait. I can't wait.
Should we mute him?
I would.
No, let him be the Rosencrantz and Guildenstern of our band.
He's both the Statler and the Waldorf. Okay. How you doing, Eddie?
I'm all right, man. It's as best as can be expected. It's a crazy day to be recording a podcast. I'm recording another one tomorrow because I'm apparently just
You're fucking cheating on me.
To be fair, this is the affair, but it's also like it's a D&D podcast, man. It's not like it's not like I'm doing another dad podcast.
Like I keep saying every week, you are the nerdier of the two of us. The last time I played Dungeons and Dragons was for a bachelor party 6 years ago, but it was like a live action Dungeons and Dragons mission. It was crazy. We were all given Nerf guns and we had to infiltrate a house in Glendale, and once we got in, there were people in there who were the enemies that we had to take out. Once we took over the house,
what you're describing is a lark.
You're not letting me finish. You're not letting me finish. You're not letting me finish. That was the introduction of the night, and then for like 4 hours we played Dungeons and Dragons.
What? Hold on. I just heard somebody say introduction. Was that for me? Am I still waiting?
You're waiting.
Okay.
Yes.
All right. I'll be over here.
Yep.
I'll be over here.
Yep. Okay. So, but I mean, things are good.
Things are good. It's a little nutty. We're all just kind of waiting. Things I don't want to say. I don't want to be the guy that says things seem okay now, and then like by the time this podcast comes out, it's like half the world has detonated.
I don't want this to be a political podcast. I don't want to be like saying you can't listen to this if you believe this or that, but there definitely is tension in my household because Thanksgiving's coming up, and
that's we already had a Facebook altercation earlier today with some dudes who are friends with my mom who got a little too familiar in some of their commentary on my wife and I. So we had to put a stop to that pretty quickly. So it's gonna be a fun holiday. I anticipate that. I anticipate the level of conspiracy theory to be just enthusiastic if certain people don't win. So it's gonna be fun to hear. It's gonna be fun to listen, probably.
I don't think you and I have the same definition of fun.
No, I mean, I say fun by I mean the complete opposite of fun.
Yes.
Or healthy or constructive.
I get it. We're not going to Thanksgiving this year. We're doing it at my place with my wife, my daughter, and my mom.
We normally host for like a gajillion people. We normally do like an open door policy because I'm actually named after my ancestor who came over on the Mayflower. Like there's an actual Edward Doty. Oh,
I mean, you're the whitest person in the room right now.
Yeah, pretty much.
Jeez.
I mean, I mean, and some other folks too. It's not like I'm fucking cloned off the guy, but like, no, it's like I like making food. I like opening my, I like the mythology of Thanksgiving as opposed to the real history of it. So like, you can acknowledge the real history, but at the same time, like try to make it better in your day-to-day life. So we cook a lot of food. We have a bunch of people over, and it's normally great. But with the pandemic, that is clearly not happening. So we're adjusting. We're going to do what we can.
Yeah.
So.
I'm just looking forward to brining a turkey because I haven't done that in forever. And yes, shout out to Alton Brown because his is the video I always reference in doing that. Look, Eddie and I can talk forever about turkeys, but we have a guest we need to introduce.
Oh boy, here I go.
So this is episode number 3 of our show, Dadward Spiral. But this guest, what can I say about this man?
Oh boy.
We share a love for coffee and the finer things in life. He is a writer, a director, a producer, a sketch comedy aficionado, and if you ask me, a voiceover superstar. But those are just some categories. You can't really fit this man into just one or even multiples. The man I'm talking about is Mr. Gary Anthony Williams.
Oh, yes.
Welcome to the show.
What? And first of all, what an introduction.
Thank you.
People are not talking about brining turkeys enough.
No.
I don't know if you're going to do that spatchcockle or cock spatchel.
Oh, I've done it before.
Cockle.
I've done it before, and I cut my finger on the spine of the chicken.
The proper way to do that is to cut your finger. You should mix your blood in with the chicken's blood.
There you go.
I mean, I don't know much about fathering, but I know everything about preparing a chicken.
Well, that's a great, like, I don't want to bury the lead here, but I think you are. I think you're our first vegan guest that we've had on the podcast.
What?
Well, Gary hasn't always been vegan, right?
Sure.
No, I grew up raising and slaughtering hogs. And,
seriously?
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Oh, well, look, man, you riff with me. I don't know what's. I know you're from Georgia, right?
I'm from Georgia. We didn't have a pig farm or anything, but we raised and slaughtered a lot of our own stuff.
Wow.
My grandma had chickens. We had hogs.
So what you're saying is when the apocalypse hits, I'm coming to your place because you know how to survive.
I know how to chop a rabbit behind the back of the head, snip off his feet, skin him down the middle. Yes, I do know that. That said, I no longer eat any of those things because I've shot a lot of things in the head in my youth, and I got tired of shooting stuff and eating it. So I stopped eating meat. I stopped eating meat back in 1987.
Oh, wow.
Oh, wow.
And then I became like a complete vegan, like no dairy, no honey, anything like that, like 96. No dairy, no honey. But before
you've been on the train for a long time. My goodness.
What was that the reason why?
The reason for becoming vegetarian was like I really got sick of seeing all the dead stuff. I grew up like literally shooting pigs in the head and cutting their throat and hanging them up and letting them bleed out, like that kind of stuff. And I saw where, a lot of people go like, no, man, if you see where it comes from, then, it's like, no, it was nasty. It wasn't even like, oh, poor animal. It was just like, oh, this is kind of nasty. So I did enough of that. That's why I stopped eating meat. And then after a while, I was like, then I became horribly lactose intolerant, which my mother later said, oh, no, baby, you're allergic to dairy. You almost died when you were a baby. So it kind of came back on me later in life. And so I gave up dairy, and then I gave up just like honey. And I was like, I'm just not eating any of it. So
yeah. Well, I'm glad we started the show off on a dark and bloody note. So
I don't think it's that that dark and bloody.
Okay.
Pigs bleed rainbows.
Oh,
they bleed rainbows.
All right.
I'm Jewish.
Let's not all brag about our religions.
But, well, so Gary,
yeah, friend.
I guess for people listening who may recognize your voice, is Uncle Ruckus your most famous character that you've done?
As far as voiceover, it's probably my most famous character
from the Boondocks.
But yeah, from the Boondocks, which we're recording new episodes of it right now.
Hey,
even
nice.
Yeah,
but also I do a lot of kids cartoons as well. I'm Mufasa on The Lion Guard on Disney. I was Doc McStuffin's dad on Disney.
Golly, we're a Doc McStuffins family. I did not realize it was you.
Yep. Doc, Donnie, time for breakfast.
Like, yeah, okay, well, there it is.
Yep. I do a lot of I do a lot of kids cartoons as well, but definitely on the adult side, for sure, Boondocks, Uncle Ruckus, yeah.
Yeah. So I guess that this was one of my questions I was going to ask later, but I'll start with that now. So 2020 and the return of Uncle Ruckus. We talked about this character of yours back when you were on my previous podcast. Is this weird coming back to this guy now?
It's the perfect time to be coming back. Lord knows that. Look, I know what you're thinking. Well, this here election was yesterday, and it ain't even been decided. But we all know the true winner is our Lord and Savior, Donald Trump. It's weird in that I hate everything that Uncle Ruckus loves in life. I hate everything he loves, but I love doing that character so much. It's ridiculous.
What is it about his character that you love doing?
The fact that he is so ignorant of his own stupidity. He's ignorant. He's so ignorant of his own hatred that it makes him funny to me. And it gives me a chance. Like, I kind of stole his personality from a lot of the guys I used to see hanging around my dad when I was younger. Like, there were some black dudes who I don't know why my dad kept a couple of them around who didn't really seem to like other black people, but everybody pretty much liked my dad. So, but they would be around, and sometimes they were just espousing how great the white man was to us. And I was like, even as a kid, I was like, what are you saying? What are you talking about? There was a man named Mr. Candy Walker who would come around just to the house and be like, if you shake hands with a white man, you shall become friends. And he's this old black dude. Like, why are you telling us? What? I couldn't understand. I never understood what that dude's deal was.
Now, you say, now you're from Atlanta.
I'm from south of Atlanta, from Fayetteville, Georgia.
Yeah. Fayetteville. Okay, yeah. Mm-hmm. So do you find, and it sounds, hearing you talk about Ruckus and the inspiration, do you find yourself as an actor, do you find yourself referencing a lot of that era of your childhood in terms of informing the characters, informing the personalities of the roles you occupy?
100%. I steal from everything. I steal definitely from my childhood, definitely from my dad, from my mom. My sisters and brothers are all funny, so I steal from them all the time. But I steal from stuff I see on a daily basis. You know what I mean? Like, anything that strikes me as funny that sometimes I don't even realize is in there, I will end up somewhere. It's going to end up falling out of my mouth. Somewhere.
Yeah.
But I definitely roll around a lot in my childhood and the people that I grew up around, for sure.
I'm fascinated about that because I've never been to Georgia, but the times we've talked, especially when I was freaking out about having a kid and how you were telling me it was the most beautiful thing, and you were giving me all this positive feedback, and even the times that I've seen you afterwards when I've been out with Lily, it's you have this very welcoming, happy vibe. Like, this joy comes over you when you're around my daughter, which is not concerning at all. I'm kidding.
No, it should not be. As I told you earlier, I know more about raising little white children than anyone in the world. Anyone.
But you gave me great advice, and just there was something. I guess what I'm getting to is you've been a dad longer than both Eddie and I have. Mm-hmm. And I'm curious, first off, this is a question I'm fond of asking. How did becoming a father, or did it impact your creative process in being in front of the camera, or just performing as an actor? Because I did some research on you. I didn't know you did Shakespeare.
Yeah. Shakespeare was my first paid, maybe first or second paid theatrical. Yeah, I started out in the theater doing Shakespeare. It impacted me in many a ways. A crazy way that it impacted me was my son was very young, and he's still this kid. He's 17 now, which, by the way, for both of you, how old are your kids? 18 months for you, Eddie, right?
I got a 9-year-old son. I got a 6-year-old son. I got an 18-month-old daughter.
So 9 years. So
He'll be 10. He'll be 10 in January.
So he'll be
coming up on
7.
10.
He'll be 17 in February. That's all I'm telling you. Like that time
Sir,
is like bam.
Sir, let me tell you, I am seeing glimpses not just of the teenager he's going to be, that in some ways he already is. I'm seeing glimpses of the man he's going to become, and I know. Aaron asked a fantastic question. I don't want to step on it, but like I see. You tell me if this is correct or not. I feel in the next 2.5 to 3 years, I'm going to have an opportunity to steer him maybe 2 or 3 degrees on his axis that could help inform the man he's going to become. I feel like anything much beyond that, my influence as a father may not find as much purchase as it will over the next like 2 years. That's what I'm sensing. At least.
Here's what I think about that whole thing. I think, and this is for me I'm only a one-time dad, but I have a crap load of nephews and nieces. I have 6 sisters, 2 brothers, and there's so many black people when I go home. Like, I don't know who all these kids are. They have different names. Like, there's Scooter, who's really Frank, or there's Walter, but it's really Spanky. Like, everybody in the Black South, you got like 10 different names. And since I'm not home all the time, they're changing them on a weekly basis, and they all know. So if I call Goo Goo, they're like, nobody calls Goo Goo anymore. Goo is Andre now. Oh, okay. By the way, 99% of those names I just told you are really names of my nephews and nieces, and it's literally always changing. Wow. Hey, Scooter. Like, who is Scooter? I don't know who that is. I do feel like when kids come out of the hopper, when they come out, they are there. All we can do is like shave it a little, polish the edges a little bit, push them a little bit to the left or the right. But I think that whatever they come out as, what my son came out day one, came out of the womb looking around. And my buddy Nick Jameson was there. He was looking around like, I don't really know who y'all motherfuckers are. I don't trust you yet. But when I do, we're going to be cool.
Yeah.
He's still that guy. Like, hold on, give me a chance to know you. All right, we're cool now.
Yeah.
He's still that dude. Like, very little in his personality has changed. Very little. He's mostly that thing. His core is still mostly that core. What did happen around 10? Boys go through a real dick phase, man. Boys go through a little pre-adolescence phase where it's like, what is happening with you dudes? What's going on? The girls don't really hit it so much, but the boys hit it hard. All of my son's friends hit it hard. And then they went through it. They made it through, and then everything was groovy.
That's funny. That's funny. I'm sorry, Eddie.
No,
my daughter from day one has been the most vocal, talkative girl, even before she knew how to speak. And here she is, 2 years and 1 month on this planet, and she already knows over 100 words. And it's insane to me at such a young age to be able to communicate the way she does. But she's always been that way. And it was like, we didn't teach her that, although we are her parents. We're also creative and loud and talkative and opinionated. But it is interesting to see that. And I looking back on baby pictures and where she is now, it's nuts. It's only been 2 years, but it feels like it was yesterday. Yeah. And people keep telling me, they're like, well, just appreciate it now, because that time's going to go by super fast.
I 100%, I always wanted to be a dad, and I don't know where you guys stepped into it. I love kids.
There's a reason why this show is called the Dadward Spiral. I seriously, and I explained this before, but I had a very, very long panic attack that lasted the whole time Kelly was pregnant, up through to about the first half of the year that Lily was alive, because I never had a dad or a grandfather or an uncle or a great grandfather around. Like, there's a lot of generational trauma that I believe exists in my family. My grandfather died in an accident on my grandmother's birthday before I was born. My grandfather was in the Holocaust. My great grandfather was in the Holocaust. My dad was really into drugs and I never knew him. So it's like, I didn't want to be that, because the whole messaging growing up was, your dad was a piece of shit and your grandfather is dead. And I had no positive examples of it. So I never wanted to. There was so much anxiety behind it. And so that's why I'm doing this now, because now that I am a father, it's all I think about. And I never used to think about it.
Yeah. I love being a dad. Like, there are times you were asking me about how does it inform my acting and all of that kind of stuff.
Or has it changed how you? It
changed. The biggest thing that changed, because I grew up in such a huge family, I was never a selfish person. No. So, and I know a lot of people like, it taught me like let's think less about myself. I've never been that person because I grew up in a huge family. Like, you're not going to have your own room. None of that's going to happen. Like, we're not all going out to a restaurant on your birthday. There were 9 of us. So what it did teach me more than anything was patience. And sometimes what my son taught, but what he would, like, one time he was doing something. I was like, Ethan, don't do that. Ethan, hey, buddy. And he was like 6 and he goes, hey, Dad, instead of always telling me what I can't do, can you just tell me the things that I can? And that was the day I went, oh, fuck. Yes, I can. I can. Yeah. That is how we can operate. And that was the first big change I remember. And then he just started spitting truth very young, to the point that me and my buddy Jeremy Rowley, we sold a show to Cartoon Network based solely on my son's ideas. He would just have these crazy scientific, workable ideas that were this close to genius and this close to crazy. And we sold a show based straight up on him, based straight up on his ideas. So, like, I literally listened. I just got off the phone with him. I literally listened to him all the time. And I made a deal with him. Like, if you have a difference of opinion with me and you can change my mind, then you win. You feel free to change my mind on it. If it was about anything, if it was about punishment, anything, if you really have something to say and you want to change my mind, you go right ahead, because he made me realize early on what I didn't know and how to attack things from his point of view. And he's never, ever, he's a fairly shy kid till you get to know him, but he's never been shy about stating his point of view with me. And he knows to this day that I will always listen to his point of view. He's never going to go, you're not going to care about what I got to say. He knows that I'm going to listen to his point of view. And now that he's this age, at 17, starting about 16 is the first time that he started really coming to me with questions, with problems that normally he never would have come to me with. Now he's like flipped the whole script on me, and he'll call me and ask me my opinions on things at this age that he never did before when he was 9, 10, 11, or 12. It's a whole different ball game, but we developed this trust literally because of that first conversation of, can you start telling me the things I can do and not just what I can't do?
Yeah. How old was he when he said that to you again?
He was about 6.
Yeah, I've noticed little ingots of wisdom come from the kids, and like my son Riker just turned 6, and I'm always I always wish that they, because kids, you never know what your kids like really think of you. You know that they love you. Mm-hmm. You know that but like in terms of what they actually articulate, my biggest thing is I want them to always know that they can talk to me. Like, no matter what it is, like that's all I really want, is just, no matter what their perception of me is, that's like the thing that I want them to walk away feeling, is that they can always talk to me about anything at any time. And if they're ever confused, my wife or I should be the people they come to immediately.
Yeah.
to talk about it. But man,
I mean, that's a big thing, at least in my eyes, because growing up, I didn't really have a trusting relationship to be able to talk about things like that to my parents or parent, my mom and my grandmother. And so that's one thing we've been trying to do here early on is give Lily a sense of agency and understanding that she has the right to have these, like when she has temper tantrums. I remember when I had temper tantrums when I was a kid. I got spanked, and we're not doing that here, but it's a new concept for me that this idea of kids at this age, my daughter's 2, and she's processing these big feelings that she has and doesn't know how to deal with them when they come over her because her brain is still developing. So there's that notion of the terrible twos where in fact it's recognizing and vocally identifying what she's experiencing and what she wants and how I understand that, but also why it can or cannot happen. And that has in and of itself changed the way I interact with just everything.
Yeah. With my son, like Eddie, it seems like your kid started communicating earlier like that. With my son, like I was always trying to put that trust into him, but only now do I see it just coming back the other way. Like he can call me and talk about anything now. And he never did this until now. Like he never even wanted to talk on the phone. Like once I had a movie I was shooting in Africa and I was FaceTiming him. He was a young kid and I was FaceTiming him and he did not want to FaceTime me. And I got back and I was like, Ethan, that makes me feel really sad that you don't want to talk to me when I'm away from home. And he said, if I talk to you, I'll miss you more. Oh. And that made me go, oh, got it. And then I never felt bad ever when I was gone, when I had to be on the road. Because when he was first born, I had a movie that I had to shoot 10 days after he was born. I had to go out of town.
Oh, wow.
I changed every diaper until I left. And then when I got back, I changed every diaper. Like I wanted to be a dad. Like still being a dad is the best thing in the world to me. I wanted to be there. I wanted to change his diaper. Like he was so bonded to me, like hand in hand since the time he was very tiny. So when he said that it would make me miss you more, then I started to understand his psyche. Yeah. Only now something happened in him that made him switch on that part of him. I was like, okay, I don't know if it was, let me test you. Let me tell you what this thing that's going on. Let me tell you that's going on. And he knows if it's something that he doesn't even want me to tell his mom about, that it's between me and him right now. It's man to man stuff right now.
That was
pretty powerful.
Yeah, I'm gonna sit back and marinate on that for a minute because there's a lot. There's so many parallels, but there's also like I think part of the reason why Aaron wanted to start this and why I was so eager to say yes is that a lot of times as dads, we experience this stuff in seeming isolation. We can obviously talk to our spouses about it. But if you're in a opposite sex couple like Aaron and I are, where, I talk to my wife, she views it through the lens of motherhood and I view it through the lens of fatherhood. My father's passed. I don't, I can't compare notes with him. And a lot of times when men get together and talk about, fatherhood, it's, I don't know if it's this unspoken expectation of how deep we can get. But a part of this, the reason I think we do this is because for moments like that, where we can sort of acknowledge and hear like, hey, what you're not experiencing this in isolation. Other fathers experience this too. These feelings, these moments, these sort of like unlocking moments where you see your child kind of evolve in a moment before your eyes. Like, moments like that are kind of the reason why I think we wanted to do this, but why also I think like we need to do this and we need to have more conversations like these. Because there just wasn't a lot of that, for us, I think. And I'd be curious to hear, for you, when you were becoming a parent, who were the people that you spoke to, that you confided in, that you compared notes with, that for you were the ones who you patterned yourself after, whether it's your father or just, other men in your family? Who was it for you that was like, I want to be like that in terms of being a dad?
I think there are a lot of people, and some of them aren't even dads. Like my brother Jeff does not have any kids of his own, but all of my nephews and nieces love him just because he's a funny guy, but he's just genuine with them. And I always connected stronger to kids anyway, because I kind of have a young, simple, I have a simple brain. Kids, they make sense to me. They make more sense than older people, especially until my mother was dying and I was around a bunch of old people. Old people made no sense to me. Like, I'm being serious with you. Like, I don't understand them. They scare me a little bit. Old people always kind of scare me. Kids, I got. Like, put me around a baby even. Put me around a 2 or 3 year old and I'm good. I get you. I understand you. I'm not going to be mad if you're going crazy on a plane. You need to be somewhere else right now. I get it. You can scream the whole flight. That's not going to kill me. We've all been babies. You know what I mean? So people like my brother, Jeff, my dad was different because my dad was always working, but he definitely cared. Like my dad and mom, like all of us, I'm talking about the six sisters and 2 brothers and me. It's all the same dad and mom. It wasn't like mixed families. It was all them. He cared. He was there. Like, I wasn't worried about anything with my dad. I wasn't worried about, hey, he doesn't love me. Like, that was not a thought in my head. He didn't voice anything like that. First time I saw my dad cry was at my grandmother's funeral. The second time I saw my dad cry was when I was moving to California. Like, that's it. Never saw my dad cry. He was a World War II veteran, other than when his son was moving away from home. So I knew how much my dad cared. It was just not a spoken thing. It's not the kind of thing I can say to my son. He didn't hang up the phone every time and say, I love you. Like, I'm never going to hang up the phone with my son and not say, I love you, So definitely my dad and my brothers, those are the men around. But my mother was such a strong figure. Like, a black mother, and it's like you got 2 dads and somebody nurturing. Like, my mother is very nurturing and a strong figure, so definitely her as much as any man. She just cared about people. Like, she liked people. I like people and I love kids.
That's funny because, Gary, I grew up around old people and I have been afraid of children until having my own.
Wow.
I hated kids. My whole thing going into this was like, I can't be a dad. I can't be around, like, kids are just germ machines. She's just going to be vomiting all over the place. And I can't be around puke. Like, I'm going to puke. I don't want to puke in my daughter's hair when she's puking. What type of message is that going to send? And I mean, I already had one bunion removed from my foot, like, almost 10 years ago. Like, I got all the old person problems, and I was raised around old people from early on. So like Phil Rosenthal and Somebody Feed Phil, like, for the first season, he was talking about being raised with food that had no flavor. And that was literally me. I was raised on my grandmother's no salt diet. Like, I didn't start having even an understanding of what real food was supposed to taste like until my teenage years, where my best friend introduced me to real food. So like, I'm going off tangent here, but it's just funny, the correlation between you relating to babies and me relating to old people. Because it's funny. I told my wife early on when she first met me that, I went to her family's house for the first time for the holidays, and it was like culture shock for me. Because Hanukkah at my family's house is like that episode of Seinfeld where George Costanza's family is around the table. Like, it's everyone talking over everyone else, people arguing about the hardness or softness of a matzo ball in the matzo ball soup, and it's always like battling doctors' test results. Like I told her, I said it's going to happen where most people are going to start talking about doctors' visits and test results and all this, and she thought I was kidding. And about half an hour into being there, it happened, and she actually had to get up and leave the room because she could not keep a straight face. But I'm actually super fascinated. And look, I am a white man. I don't know what the Black experience is like in America firsthand, but I'm super fascinated by hearing about these stories about big families and the connection between brothers and sisters and all that, because I had none of that. I had a very isolated family experience growing up, a very fractured experience because of the trauma that happened before I was born. But you know, also I'd never been to Georgia, and it feels like down there it's a whole different world from what we're living in LA.
Well, also, so my parents were older and poorer, which kind of almost set them back many years in the way we grew up. So when I grew up in Fayetteville, Georgia, it was nothing for us to be driving up through Riverdale to Atlanta and see the Klan out on the side of the road, like handing out pamphlets and stuff like that. So if you grow up as a kid, like we were very poor. And I know a lot of people say, man, we were so poor, but we were happy. We didn't know we were poor. Like, that's bullshit. If you're really poor, you know you're poor. Like, no question.
I was on food stamps when I was a kid and wearing hand-me-down clothes that had patches, and like I got beat up for it. Like, I know.
See, we were poor, but too proud to be like taking government handouts. That's why we raised our own hogs, and like had a huge, it wasn't a farm, but like a huge plot of land, like 3/4 of the way around our house, where we had corn and tomatoes and beans. Like we raised and ate most of our own stuff, when I was growing up. What was I saying about? I don't remember why I was going in.
Oh, you were talking about being young and the Klan and the experience growing up.
So the stuff I saw growing up, like my dad had a messed up eye until he was very old, when a doctor said, hey, I could fix your eye for you, because we grew up in this backward ass town back then. It's changed a lot now, where he was beat by the cops for being Black. Like that was it. Like it was a very segregated kind of town. Like my cousin Greg was one of the first 2 Black kids to go to the public school. Before that, it was the colored school and the regular school. Like that's the kind of thing that I grew up in.
It's crazy. I'm sorry for interrupting just for a second, but it's just crazy to think about. And I know Dave Chappelle talked about this in his recent special after George Floyd, but like, it wasn't that long ago. Like people seem to think that it was so long ago. It was what, 2 generations, 1 generation from like a whole different time where people are like, oh, it was different. We're so different from where we were to where we are. But I'm like, it wasn't that long ago.
Well, my grandmother's parents were slaves. Like for me, like that's how far back it was. It wasn't long ago. I knew my grandmother very well, and her parents had been slaves. So it wasn't that long ago. But like growing up as a kid with that, and then you had that strong family around, and then your cousins were like family. Cousins were always there. So we were always around each other. Everybody was always supporting each other. It was a huge family. That's what it was like. And there were always kids around. And so I think that's why I was so comfortable, with kids around. And I saw the joy of just playing. And I grew up in the woods, basically. I saw that joy, and I've never lost that joy. And my son is a very serious kid. So a serious kid with a very dry sense of, like very, very funny, but very dry sense of humor. Totally different kind of sense of humor than I have, except he can screw with somebody with a straight face and they don't know it until a day later, that kind of thing. So I grew up very, very playful, and he is a very cerebral, funny, brilliant kind of kid.
I guess, yeah, I think I met him once at M Street, and he seemed very in his head. Well, I didn't want to like get in his way. Like he seemed like he was mulling over some sort of big equations on life.
He does. He's he is his own person, and I will never stand in his way from being his own person. Like he's invented things.
Yeah.
Like he's that guy. He's literally he got a Rubik's cube, and like the next day it was taken apart. And it's like,
Wow.
dude, he's like, didn't you take yours apart when you had it? I was like, no, I would have been afraid. Didn't you want to know how it worked? Yeah, but dude, I was going to get one. I'm never going to
Right.
put it back together.
That's funny. I'm building to a question that makes me nervous asking, because I don't want to get super political on the show, but
No, I don't mind.
there is that, and Joe Biden mentioned it in the debate, and I've actually heard about this through other Black friends of mine. Yes, you're not the only one, but
we'll see.
There, I never had to have these talks with my family or my mom to explain how to behave if being pulled over by the cops. And it feels like even recently, over the past few months, we've had in my household, deep, borderline furious discussions with certain people in the family about the concept of systemic racism in the country, and also how privilege can just come to you by sheerly have a certain color of skin, whether or not you grew up poor or rich. And I'm wondering what your perspective is, or your experience is in raising, in being raised in this type of environment, I guess, and also raising a kid in an environment that has changed but hasn't at the same time.
Right. And also raising him out here in California in more of a bubble than.
Yeah. Oh, that's a good point.
When he goes home to see his cousins, when we go home at Christmas or in the summer or whatever, to see all his cousins, like they live, it's way better than when I grew up there. Way, way better. But it's a different life than he has. My ex, his mom is white, but he just looks like a Black kid. Like you're never going to. He has a huge fro. Yeah. You're never going to think he's anything other than a Black kid. So when he was younger, someone said, "What does he identify as?" I was like, I don't know. So I go to him and I go, "What do you identify as?" He goes, "Dad, I don't think about that stuff." He never thought about it as younger. Now I guess he identifies as Black because he's now in high school, and suddenly the world has made him a Black kid, even though equally he's both of those things. Yeah. But he looks like a Black kid. Definitely, you have to have the talk, as they say, when it comes to driving, about being pulled over by cops. I will tell you 100%, it's going to be weird to find any Black dude who's grown up anywhere, maybe than in LA, but I'm guessing in LA as well, who has not been harassed by a cop, who has not been followed around in a store. Dude, I was followed around in stores all the time. I couldn't walk down the street without people locking their doors. But like before, when there were power locks, you hear the chunk. When there wasn't, the ladies would stretch like they're stretching, and they'd reach over and lock their passenger.
Yeah. Oh my God.
in the South, So I grew up seeing that stuff all the time, and it makes me angry, and it made me sad for them to think, what do you think that I want from you? Yeah. And so my son is very aware. Like, we've never not had a conversation. If he was ever curious about anything, I remember I used to listen to Dr. Laura more as a joke than anything, but she was like, when your kids ask a question, just answer enough that they stop asking questions. But my son was never the question stopper. Like, it was like, and then why is that? And then tell me more about that. And then why is that? So he would always go till he got a full answer. When he found out that his white mom like, oh, so white people used to own black people. And he was very young where he would just press on more. What do you mean? Why did they do that? Like, he was maybe 4 at that time. And it's like, but I made myself a promise before he was born. If he ever asked me a question, I'm going to answer it, and I'm going to answer it truthfully. I promised myself that. It made my stomach sick for 2 years because he wouldn't shut up with questions. It really did. And now it has paid off in, you would say spades, but that's racist, in shovels.
Very well done.
But it's definitely paid off. So when he found out that my ex, that she raised, that like her line of people owned my line of people, like, it was like, what do you mean, at a very young age? And he wanted all the explanations for everything. And he's never been hurt by the truth. He was 3 years old. He was helping me fix the chimney. and he bolted up. He goes, "There's no Santa Claus."
Oh no.
I said, why? I said, why would you say that? And he goes, he couldn't fit down the chimney. Reindeer can't fly, and he would never make it around the world if they could. There's no Santa Claus, right, Daddy?
You can't debate it.
I said, do you want to know the real answer? And he goes, yeah. I said, there's not, but don't. He goes, I won't tell my friends. I was like, okay. And he never did, And that was 3. That was at 3.
That's crazy.
So
we've had those.
Been...
I'm sorry for interrupting you. We've had those conversations here, and I have said it before. I'm a Jewish man, but also I married a woman who is from a Christian family, and so we're raising our kid in an environment that celebrates both Hanukkah and Christmas. But my wife was the one that was like, I don't want to raise her with a lie about this Santa Claus character. And I'm like, you want to tell her that he doesn't exist? And she's like, well, I want to be honest with her. I don't want to lie about it and put her on some stranger's lap in the mall and be like, this is Santa, I can't argue that.
I didn't, I grew up believing way longer than I should have that there was a Santa Claus. And so I just figured, when he asks me, then I'll tell him, or when he's older. But I didn't expect it to be at 3. You know? But he's,
No, I was just saying, no, it's okay. There's this whole like idea of like kids losing innocence, right?
Yeah.
And I know, like, from my perspective, and from being a white dad, everything earlier this year, we had to sit our boys down and explain to them why the protesting was happening. We had to explain to them, everything that happened with George Floyd. And so there was a moment where I was explaining to them, like, no, you cannot just inherently trust every cop you see. Like, you can't, and I come at from a perspective of, I'm former military, and I can sort of see the exact reasons why a lot of that is, in terms of training and all this other stuff. But like, for me, I allowed myself to be sad for about 3 seconds that they were losing their innocence, and then I was immediately kicked in of like, I don't have the burden that my friends who are Black and brown fathers, they have to have this conversation plus a whole lot more.
Yeah. I mean, especially for me, like I said, knowing what happened to my dad's eye, just literally for being Black in Fayetteville, Georgia, like literally that's the reason. Like, I guess I had the innocence of Santa Claus, but I never felt hurt by the truth. So the other thing about my kid that really describes who he is I was talking to him about joy. Like, for me, what I seek in life, I seek joy. Like, in everything I do. If I have a job, how fun is it? If there's another job that pays an equal amount of money, I'm taking the fun one. If there's another job that pays less, but if the joy job pays a little bit less, but it's like serious joy with people I love, I'm still taking the joy job. So I'm talking to him one day about joy. It's like, son, you got to find your joy in life. And he goes, I don't. That's not what I seek, Dad. Again, he's probably 10 at this age, and I go,
I relate a lot to your son.
yeah. And I said, what do you seek? And he goes, I seek the truth. And I said, okay, well, the truth is your joy. And he goes, no, you want that to be my joy. I seek the truth. I was like, done. We're good. You know who you are. Like he knows. He knows. So
oh, man,
that innocence, that loss of innocence thing for him, it was just never. That never was a thing with him, because what makes him more satisfied than anything is just knowing what's real in life. And I don't see that hurting him. He enjoys who he is. He enjoys doing the things that he does, and he enjoys his friends, and he enjoys track, and he enjoys computer programming. Like, he enjoys all of those things. But more than anything, like, let me find out what's real about some shit, and then I'm good.
That's, I think, one of the reasons why so many people flock to you, at least before the pandemic. I used to call Gary the mayor of M Street.
I was
Coffee.
the city
comptroller.
Yes,
because everyone fucking knew you, and every time I'm around you, it feels like you're so happy, and you ooze this sort of joyous personality. And I don't know if you could tell, but I'm kind of a curmudgeon. And although I have come to embrace the concept of joy and kindness and seek it out more now that I am a father, and it's weird that wasn't where my mind was or my priorities were before having a kid. And it's something that I've been grappling with for a while, because, we've talked about this before on the show, that there was pre-Lily and post-Lily. Lily is the name of my daughter. Before her, I was a completely different person, and I haven't 100% changed. But even a friend of mine, I saw him like 2 months ago. He was like, wow, you're way more patient than you were. And it's like, it's kind of hard not to be, especially when you're in lockdown with a child.
Wow. See, you guys have done something with that I never.
Eddie has 3 and a full-time job.
Yeah.
I would have probably, I would probably be on pills by now if I had 3, like just to regulate.
Well, but there's a lot of, and you're hearing some of it now, but there's a lot of like unseen advantages to having more than one. And when my oldest is 3.5, almost 4 years older than my other son, and he's about 3.5, almost 4 than my daughter. And for us, seeing the two boys like take care of each other, when I'm in the other room, or like if I'm getting ready for the day and I hear them interacting and sort of, I had 3 older brothers, but we weren't all raised in the same house at the same time, because we're all like half brothers and stuff. And there's a significant age gap. They have everything I never had in terms of a brother to brother relationship. And to see that unfold is like such a privilege, because I'm seeing them not just learn from me, but I can see like them taking bits of what they learned from my wife and myself, putting it into practice and reminding each other of that, and adding their own perspective and their own wisdom to it. What you're saying earlier about your kid being your kid almost out the gate, and just, you shave off little bits. The core of who my oldest son is, I could not ask for a better oldest sibling for my other children than him, because he encourages his siblings. I'm getting choked up. He encourages his siblings. He helps keep them calm. He inspires them. Like he gives them fun and comfort, and yes, you have your hands full with more than one child, but to see them themselves fill in the gap, even the younger ones, the older ones, it is something to witness. And if anything, it's made me more paranoid in my choices, because I don't want to like have a bad day, teach them the wrong thing, and then see that reverberate.
I do think that you get a couple of chances on teaching a kid a wrong thing. But if I have a regret about fatherhood, is that I didn't have more kids, especially growing up in a big family. Like, I would love to. My son, he's only mentioned it one time that it would have been nice to have a sister or brother, but he could carry his only kid. But for me, like I loved that experience, and you know, like to have given my son that experience, to have a sister or brother is great, but also just the fact that I like being around those little people. So that's the biggest out of everything. That's like my biggest regret is I don't have what you have, Eddie, which is more of those guys, because you do end up taking care of each other. And you know what, you have some built-in friends, and some you can have built-in enemies too, you know, with sisters and brothers. But definitely, you know, I can pick up the phone anytime, and my brother called me today just to ask me about my car, you know, that kind of thing. Like
Well,
just simple
Eddie, I
stuff.
don't know. We haven't even talked about this. Gary drives a Tesla.
Well,
Uh,
only now.
Oh,
Only now. I was not. I was driving a
you offered
Hyundai.
me the ability to ride that thing before to
Yes.
drive that thing before the pandemic hit. I haven't
Yeah.
forgotten.
Well, when the
I'm gonna
wait,
walk to your house. I'm just gonna start walking around the neighborhood yelling, Gary.
yeah, or whistle for the car. I drive the poor man's Tesla, but I did. You know, I get a car. I'm a cheap guy. I get a car and I keep it until it dies. And one day I was driving my Hyundai Sonata at the corner of Whitsett and Moore Park, and a 17-year-old boy took a left in front of me who
Oh,
shouldn't have, and I had the green, and the airbag came out in slow motion. I was like, "Up, time to get a new car." So I just went and got that thing,
right
and
by the
I love
library.
it. Right by the library.
Yeah, that's where I dropped
Yeah,
off my ballot.
yeah.
Gary.
Let me say this, and I know this sounds real cliche, but it is 100% true for me. I have learned 5 times more from my kids, seriously, than I will ever be able to teach him.
mm,
Like he has taught me, like literally taught me things, and just in the world taught me things. And some things he didn't know he was teaching me, and some things that made me go, if adults could live. There was once when nothing bad was going on. It's me and my ex, and we're eating dinner with my son, and he just goes, "Uh, I've thought of all the punishments that you guys could do to me, and really, they're not that bad." So, and I thought, if every adult went to work and thought, "I thought of all the worst things that my boss could do to me, and they're not that bad." I mean, think of how productive we can all be if you know, like nobody's. Chances are your boss isn't going to shoot you with a gun, or your neighbor. You know what? If you thought that things aren't nearly as big and scary as we are, as they seem in our head. But I've learned so much from that dude, more than I could ever give back to him. And I don't know if this is a question for you guys. I don't know if it's just the kid I'm raising. I don't know if it's because I really listen to him, or I don't know if that is just the parental experience that we get educated by them. I don't know what it is, but I can honestly say, without sounding like a freaking book, that is 100% true for me.
I've already learned a bunch about myself I didn't know, or
I, I, th-
or like a bunch about what I'm capable of.
Mm-hmm.
I think for me, because as I'm hearing you talk, Gary and Aaron, like as I'm hearing you say that, there's so many experiences that resonate. I think like the best way I could put it is your children are like a mirror, and you can see a lot of yourself in there, but you can also see like the world behind you, you know, in
Mm-hmm.
that reflection. And what you're seeing is how they view the world and like how they interact with it. And doing so, because you're facing that direction, they're facing the opposite, and they get to see a whole side of the world that you don't.
Mm-hmm.
And the parts of them that are you mix and collide with the parts of them that aren't you, and you get to your perspective widens if you let it. There are some suboptimal dads out there who maybe
like mine.
I mean, listen, I mean, it's there's some really good dads out there who maybe don't have that takeaway that you do, Gary, like that don't have that perspective of learning from their kids. Maybe they can love their kids, they can respect their kids, but maybe they don't take the time that you do. And I appreciate so much that you have that bond with your son, that it's they take that opportunity for granted, and I'm hoping that as time goes by, more and more dads do.
Yeah. So we're gonna start wrapping this up. I didn't realize what time it was, but Gary, before we go, I have 2 more questions for you.
Okay.
First off, do you have a favorite vegan recipe that is one of your go-tos? Because look, this is just for me. I need more.
I have a couple. I can send you a chili that I created. I have a vegan chili that is my recipe. I can send you a scramble that is the best scramble that you're ever going to have. I have stuff. I have the chili recipe. I actually have it in little book form that I made with pretty pictures.
I like pictures and I like chili. So sounds. Can I put the pictures in the chili?
Yeah, that's what you're supposed to do. You literally make them out of. So what I've done, I've printed these pages, but the pages are garlic and beans. So you just really ball up the pages.
Oh yeah.
Throw it in water.
It's very innovative.
Yeah. Oh, thank you.
Second question for you. I'm curious. This sort of started last week with my last guest, but I know already from the feedback I've gotten, some listeners out there are kind of on this path that I was on and that Eddie was on, and that they may become a father soon, especially during the pandemic. It's become a point of anxiety and contention. And I'm wondering, as a man who has been a father for almost 2 decades, do you have any words of wisdom that you could, hand down? Any advice?
My only advice is like that life, what I seek, I seek joy, and I find joy in being a father. And so it's like, seek out that joy, seek out that being able to play, being able to, what Eddie was kind of seeing the world through their eyes. Like, it's better to see, like, we already have that point of how we look at things, but to like really see the world through a kid's eyes and encourage the way they think, because they're thinking of some stuff that you and I don't ever get a chance to think of, that our brains aren't relaxed enough. Like, literally take time in the joy of it. And that's it for me. It's that simple.
That seems so simple, but it also seems so complicated, especially now since there's so many distractions available. And you see a lot of parents out there at parks and stuff with their kids with their head down, looking at their phones instead of being engaged in the moment. I think that is a very good piece of advice. And
buy a Frisbee and throw it at your kid.
All right.
Instant connection.
I'm going to bill you for the head wound that is eventually going to happen with my daughter.
Nah, I didn't say how hard to throw it or at what part of their body. That's on you, bro.
It's going to be Frisbee golf with a 2-year-old. Eddie, do you have anything else?
No, this has been fantastic, and really appreciate your perspective, Gary. And but I always here for vegan recipes. I cook a lot, but I'm always looking to expand into more, into things outside my wheelhouse. So I'd love to hear it as well.
If it's something that I can do in the Instant Pot, because that has become a staple in my kitchen.
I love it. I have. Do you eat split pea soup?
I don't know.
I have a vegan split pea soup for the Instant Pot. You're gonna love it. It's very simple.
I just made a Ukrainian lentil soup in the Instant Pot last week, man. I use the Instant Pot in the air fryer all the time. I cook dinner 5 days a week or 7 days a week here. So like that's one of my roles in the household while my wife does her work. Gary,
brother,
are you still doing your podcast?
Yeah, we're going to start doing some new ones soon. That podcast you're talking about is Day Drinking with Gary and Elliot.
And Elliot is a mixologist.
Elliot
right?
is a mixologist. He's also an animation producer, even more than that. But he
wow.
is a self-taught home mixologist. So yeah.
So that's Day Drinking with Gary and Elliot.
Yeah.
And that's available everywhere podcasts are available.
Yep. And there's about to be something good is happening with it. So you can catch the old ones out there now, and then there's about to be a rebirthing.
Oh, that's great. I remember you were talking to me about that when it first started. You also finished shooting a thing on Netflix recently.
Yeah, man. A new Netflix sitcom should be starting next year. We're already finished shooting the first season, called The Crew with Kevin James, and
cool.
It's about very fun, very funny, very fun guy, like genuinely nice, fun guy. So that'll start around February. It's about a NASCAR racing crew, and I'm the head mechanic.
Yeah, I was Gary knows because I was interacting with you on Instagram. Gary had to quarantine for 2 weeks when going back to New York to shoot, and
literally could not leave the hotel room, not even step out into my hallway for 2 solid weeks. That was not easy. That was horrible for me.
But it was fun to watch your content.
I was seriously like losing it. Like,
you're going a little stir crazy.
Yeah.
I would too, man.
No, it's starting to make me think, Aaron, maybe prisons aren't fun for guys. I always thought prisons were fun. Prisons are fun. You get to stay in your room, blah, blah. Maybe they're not fun.
But what about Orange is the New Black?
They're fun. You made me rethink it.
Well,
you made me rethink it.
Do you have anything else coming up that you want to pimp, or God, I should not use that term, that you want to promote?
Do I have anything else come up? New episode, just there's some cartoons coming up that I can't mention yet, but definitely I can mention that new episodes of the Boondocks will be coming up. And then I can't mention what it is, but a new movie that your children will be seeing next year.
So once
I don't know why I drew all that out. I don't know why. I'm assuming
we're gonna get Gary Anthony Williams autographed swag.
Oh yeah, you will. Yeah, you will.
Gary, how can people find you online?
On the Instagram at Gary Anthony Williams, on Twitter at Gary A. Williams. I'm trying to not be too politically angry right now, so I'm just, I'm keeping it down right now.
Yeah, I'm in constant awareness and self-censoring mode. I get it, man. I went through a thing earlier in the year where I went off the deep end on social media because I couldn't handle the anxiety, and I got to dial it back because it started spilling into my my life here at home, and my daughter's like, "Daddy angry, Daddy frustrated." I'm like, Gary, this is I have learned so much about you. Seriously,
too much, really. It's too much about each other. We really.
I'm expecting you to take me with you to the next family reunion, so I can be your token. Not white guy, just the token Jew that doesn't know anything about Southern food.
That is true. That is. Oh yeah, we do need. Like my sister and brother are always saying, why aren't there more Jewish people at the family reunion? We're always saying.
Hi. Yeah. Hello. I'm here. I'll teach you the horror. I'll bring some kugel. We can mix it up.
If you have time. Look, I'll tell you what. Next Sukkot, why don't you come over? And
I'm not that Jewish.
I'm more Jewish than you.
You live in the neighborhood, man.
I do, brother.
Well, wow, Gary, thank you so much. This has been a trip down the dadward spiral. I really do appreciate you coming on, especially given what's going on in the world. I know you're really busy. Once again, I want to thank Dragon Wagon Radio for giving us a home. You could find us on dragonwagonradio.com or at iTunes or Stitcher or Spotify or iHeartRadio. I just found out we're on Castbox, which is a podcast platform I learned about in my previous show. We're
Oh, that's fun.
everywhere. And if you like what you're listening to, please subscribe to us on iTunes and give us a review. We live on reviews. If you don't give us reviews, we're starving and we might die. My name is Aaron Pruner. You can find me at Aaron Flux on Twitter, Aaron W. Pruner on Facebook and Instagram, and we're Dadward Spiral on Twitter and Facebook. Eddie, where can people find you?
You can find me at Twitter at Kirby.Matrix. You can find me at Twitch at twitch.tv/ZeroDork30. And yeah. Thanks to Gary. That contains everything else. So.
Thanks to Gary Anthony Williams for joining us. Gary, I hope to see you at Whole Foods sometime soon.
Oh, yeah. Dude,
I think about it all the time. My daughter loves Whole Foods, you guys.
There's some big plums out right now. I just want to tell you guys this. Actually, if you go to that Tapia Brothers farm, you will find
we went there.
I live right by there.
Plums over there the size of peaches right now.
Ridiculous.
Like big peaches. Delicious tomatoes. Delicious.
That's where we took our daughter to get her first ever pumpkin.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
I was just there yesterday.
That was pretty cool. I'd never been there before. But I'm going to go now, I guess, and get plums the size of my head.
By the way, I'm not sponsored by Tapia Brothers, but Tapia Brothers, where fresh is the third ingredient.
Gary, thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you, guys. Seriously, thank you.
Thank you so much.
Thanks, everyone, for listening. We'll speak to you again soon. But until then, to coin Bill and Ted, be excellent to each other.
I'm Coy Jandro. I am a comic book aficionado, expert, and overreader, and I am doing a show called Coycast, where I am talking about everything from all the publishers. That's right, Marvel, DC, Image, Boom, IDW, every single comic you like, I am probably reading, and I want to talk about it with you. And then we'll talk about how it translates to movies, TV, film. We will cover everything from page to screen, from screen to page. We will loop it all back, and I'm going to give pull lists every single week, what books you should be reading and what books influence the very movies and TV shows you're enjoying. So check out Coycast.com and listen to Coycast wherever podcasts are found.
It's Dragon Wagon.